You owe a lot to human guinea pigs. We all owe them, big time, for all the wonder drugs and miracle surgical procedures available today. Someone had to be the first to try them out and test for side effects and make sure they were safe. Of course, this is the way it's worked for hundreds of years throughout the entire history of medical research. Lab rat Bob Helms publishes his own zine. It's called Guinea Pig Zero, a journal for human research subjects.
In the Renaissance, for example, there were death row inmates, basically, used as models for surgery when the king, I think it was King Henry, I can't remember, I think it was Henry II in France, he was injured in a joust, and he had a lance through the eyeball, right into the back of his head, and he was dying, and they used these convicted felons for models of surgery, and they would just carve into their heads or stab them with a similar piece of wood and then go in and practice the surgery before they tried it on the king.
It's important to remember that back then, you could be sentenced to death for stealing a loaf of bread, so these were basically poor people. And Helms says it's still mainly poor people who are doing the experiments, research studies today.
I do this for money. I don't do it because, it'll help humanity. And most people who do what I do it for their own good.
What usually happens, Helms says, is a person will volunteer for 1 or 2 studies and then quit because either they can't stand the boredom of sitting around a medical unit or they just get totally grossed out by some of the things you have to do. However, there are those who seem pretty casual about having tubes jammed up their noses and being constantly stuck by needles. They see it as easy money, and volunteering becomes like a regular thing for them. Some, a few, usually men, make it their whole career and basically live out of a duffel bag, hopping from state to state, study to study. In the trade, these guys are referred to as gypsy guinea pigs. But most lab rats who like doing studies only do them part-time, and they have other odd jobs they do to make money. Like this 49-year-old mother of 3 who also paints houses, temps, works in factories, and is a substitute grade school teacher. She's been volunteering for research studies for about 7 years now.
During that time, I have probably given about 5 gallons of blood, along with other body fluids, taken numerous prescriptions, capsules, pills, liquids, what have you, that would probably fill up the back of a pickup truck. Numerous x-rays and other invasive tests, and lots of paperwork. Lots and lots and lots and lots of paperwork. Diaries for every study, just about.
She's volunteered for all types of different research projects, from a long-term AIDS study needing healthy subjects to a recent one where she tested new support pantyhose for people with poor circulation. At the beginning of each year, she sits down with a calendar and plots out the number of clinical studies she can squeeze in. Usually, it's about 4 or 5. And then the battle begins.
All the professional guinea pigs are looking for the high-dollar studies. At some of the screenings, it almost gets cutthroat. The phone calls, I'm sure, at the research centers are unreal because you have to start calling immediately when you see it in the paper. And if they fill up, you're out of luck, so you better call quick. Some of them have weight restrictions. People go on crash diets real quick so they can fit into compliance there. Laxatives, self-induced vomiting to lose weight. Medication profile. If you're taking a lot of medication and the study that you are wanting to do requires that you not be taking anything, then you better quit taking it real quick.
To try and pass the drug screens, some guinea pigs will guzzle vinegar and water, hoping to flush the pot residue out of their bodies. Not that she's done any of this. She's only heard stories. In fact, she compares the way she treats her body to an athlete, always trying to eat right and stay in shape. Otherwise, she wouldn't be of any use to researchers looking for healthy human bodies to experiment on.
There was a study I did one time from one of the major facilities, involving exercise physiology. During this study, I had to pedal a bicycle with all kinds of tubes and electrical nodes attached to me. And they would speed up the bicycle and turn down the oxygen just to see, at what point I would probably pass out and fall off the bike.
Usually, though, the studies she takes part in aren't this physically demanding, and most are outpatient. But there have been some that required overnight stays at a university hospital or private research lab. She remembers one study that involved several weekend lockdowns.
We would go in on Friday afternoon, bring our bags and our pillows, and when we got to the door, they went through our bags and made sure that there was nothing in there that they considered contraband. We drew numbers. The numbers were assigned to bunk beds. Men were on one side and the women were on the other side. The first night wasn't too bad, but the second evening, just knowing that we couldn't go and come and run down to the store or go here or go there was a little bit shattering. And then by the next day, some of us were climbing the walls, others were making sock dolls, and others were playing cards and doing whatever you could find to do to keep yourself from going stir crazy. But just knowing that you couldn't get out, that you were literally locked in. It was almost like the nurses were prison guards. But there were certain times during the day that the blood draws and the dosing the medication had to be done exactly on the minute. After you swallow the pills, you had to open your mouth, have the nurse look in your mouth and make sure you weren't holding the pills in there. The blood draws were done 3 times a day. We lost a couple of guys at that point because they couldn't take so many blood draws. And this study had 57 blood draws during the 3.5 weekend lockup. My vein on my left arm was getting very tired of looking at needles and was trying to shut down the last few blood draws. But I was glad when it was done and got all the blood draws out of the way. And then 10 days later, I got my check in the mail.
She was able to use the $1,500 she got from this study to catch up on her car payments. Fellow guinea pig Bob Helms believes that being a human research subject compares quite nicely to working in the sex trade.
Because there's penetration of the body is involved. An invasion of privacy is involved that most people would not find acceptable. And also the fact that when I go into an experiment, my opinions, my emotional feelings, my thoughts are not part of the equation at all. My body is the only thing that really matters to the experimenter. It's the same as when a prostitute takes on a customer. It's strictly a body thing.
My mother thinks it's gross. But I don't consider it selling my body for money. I consider it like any other part-time job. It's money coming in the house.
But she's aware the stigma's out there attached to guinea pigging, so she's careful about who she tells. It's why she didn't want me to mention her name in this story. Even her husband has trouble understanding.
I think in his mind he pictures the old stereotype where it's kind of dark and sleazy, and he's probably afraid that I'm going to wind up with some major medical problem for having done all the research. But as long as I can fit the profile, I'm going to keep doing it.